业新闻。
欢迎您回到新闻现场。全球市场现在关注的就是美国联准会什么时候要升息，因为一旦升息就会牵动全世界的经济局势。而欧洲方面早就开始实施量化宽松，美国经济学家就预测，接下来全球的投资热钱将会流向欧洲大陆。
关键时刻掌握关键对话，全球经济局势都在关注欧美央行是不是要升息，货币政策有没有改变。我们今天很高兴邀请到的是世邦魏理仕全球首席经济学家 Richard Barkham 来跟我们一起分享对全球不动产投资的看法。Dr. Barkham, welcome.
Hi.
Real estate market in Asia will be surging due to the quantitative easing, no matter it's from United States or Europe.
Well, yes. Quantitative easing certainly has had an impact on real estate markets around the world. The whole point of quantitative easing is to depress bond rates, and that feeds through into a search for yield, and that then feeds through into demand for real estate assets. But I don't think it's the only factor that's affecting real estate asset values. There is a strong fundamental growth in the region, which underpins rental growth, which makes Asia real estate quite attractive. And of course the region is rich in savings as well. So as Asian people get wealthier and they save more, the big institutions require more assets, and that includes real estate. So quantitative easing is only part of a broader desire for real estate, or a support for real estate values.
So although the U.S. Fed already announced that they will delay the interest rate hike, but in your prediction, when will it happen, and will it change the outlook of 2015?
No, I don't think so. I think we're looking for a 25 basis points increase in interest rates in around September, although conceivably it might also be pushed into January. Fundamentally, in the States, although there is good growth and good job creation, there is still weakness in the labour market. So a good statistic for that is if the labour participation rate was the same now as it was in 2007, unemployment would still be at 10%. So we think there's quite a lot of slack in the labour market, not much wage growth, not much inflation pressure. So even if the Fed does make a symbolic increase in interest rates, we see interest rates staying low for the rest of 2015 and the rest of 2016 as well. And we only see rates really significantly rising at the end of 2016.
So will it be another recession in U.S.?
No, I think there is always a cycle in the US, and the average cycle is around the average of the last 3 cycles is around 9 years. If you date the recovery in the US from 2009, it suggests there might be another recession or a significant economic slowdown around 2018.
Actually, in Asia, we're confronted to a economic slowdown too. So a lot of Taiwanese insurance companies seeking investment overseas, especially last year. So from your point of view, what do you think they are looking for?
Well, it's not always a question of the type of property. One thing one can see in Taiwan, and indeed the rest of Asia, is that yields or capitalization rates are relatively low. By contrast, in America, or particularly in Europe, capitalization rates are quite high. So I think one thing that interests Taiwanese investors is just being able to invest in quality assets, which give you a 4 or 5% income return, which is almost double that which you could obtain in Taiwan. So it's not always a question of the type of property.
Where do you think the hard money goes? I mean, because the Japanese yen depreciation, some of investors go to Japan to buy some house or flats, or in UK for children studying there. So what's the next hotspot?
Well, I think if you look at pricing around the world, you would have to say that Asia is relatively expensive, apart from Japan. And the Japanese market still offers a good yield spread over the bond rates, and with the yen depreciation, as you said, that market is quite attractive. And the US is probably offering fair value, but the market that offers the best value at the moment is the Eurozone. where you have a very high spread of capitalization rates relative to bond rates, and you have quite a good economic recovery developing based on domestic demand, based on quantitative easing. So I would say that probably the hot money is going to go into continental Europe over the next 12 to 24 months.
Compared to China, Hong Kong, or Singapore, they have more foreign investors than we do. We used to have 25% of overseas investment, but now it only accounts 3%. Where did this investment go?
I think probably they go to, I mean, as you have pointed out, that Japan is very attractive to Asian investors right now. Taiwan is, it's a great market with good economic fundamentals, but it is very expensive, and it's a relatively small market. And I think also we see Asian investors also not going outside of Asia as well, into Europe, into London, and into the big gateway cities around the world. So it's a question, you know, it's a question of Asian investors wanting to get diversification beyond the region.
And have we been marginalized in Asia-Pacific area for us?
No, I don't think so. I think that's far from the truth. At the moment, I would say on a cyclical basis that the markets in Asia are quite expensive. So that puts investors a little bit off.
Do you think that our policy to foreign investors are friendly enough to welcome them to come here?
I don't think they are unfriendly, but I think foreign investors will look at quite a lot of intervention in the marketplace. For instance, you've mentioned the intervention in the housing markets to cool that market off. I think investors don't like unpredictable policy changes, even though they may have perfectly good social reasons for those interventions. Investors just like stability. They just like markets that where the rules of investing are well understood, clearly known, and that gives them and are not likely to change, you know, relatively sort of quickly. So I wouldn't say Asian policies or Taiwanese policies are unfriendly, but they could be more stable. But I don't think it's policy, I think, that might be deterring investors for the moment. As I say, your market is quite expensive. Yields are relatively low compared to other parts of the world.
In Taiwan, our government put a lot of effort on cooling of house market because we used to have a lot of investors make a good living by flipping properties, earn quick profit. But now our value of real estate is declined sharply. So do you think that is a warning that our market is in danger?
That is not an indicator that the market is due for collapse. The key variable that you should always watch for real estate markets is, well, there are two key variables, but the one is interest rates and the other is GDP growth. If you've got reasonable GDP growth and low interest rates, you rarely get a serious collapse in real estate values. So even if the cooling measures have worked, probably if they are retracted or lessened, then you would see a bounce back.
What kind of properties or retail, hotel or business building that foreign investors come to Taiwan is looking for?
I think at the moment foreign investors would be interested in offices. Offices seem to be very popular with investors around the world, whereas retail has been less popular, I think, over the last 5 years. It's always historically been a very popular asset. But I think there are changes going on in the retail sector to do with e-commerce and the way retail businesses meet the challenge of e-commerce that makes investors a little bit nervous about retailing. And retailing is always a local business as well. So I think offices are very popular. I think retail investors are a little bit cautious on. But I think hotels are also very, very popular with investors at the moment. I think, I mean, that's partly if you look at occupancy rates around the world, they're pretty high. But also I think the hotel industry has kind of reinvented itself, and there are a lot more kind of cool hotels, cities are very fashionable and popular, so there's lots of tourism underpinning hotel demand. And I think investors have caught on to that. And I think hotels, interestingly enough, are quite attractive to investors at the moment.
Thank you, Dr. Barkham. 想要借由投资来促进经济发展，通常政策的稳定性是外资的首要考量。希望今天的分析能够提供给大家参考。